Hello and welcome to Community Forum. My name is Joseph Feaster. I'm the host of the program. And as I always say, I'm bringing you important individuals with important messages for those of us who live here in Stoughton. Today is no exception. I have another select board candidate, Jared Rose, who has run for political office before, but is a Stoughton resident and is looking for your support for his candidacy for the select board this year. So, Jared, welcome to Community Forum.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe.
Well, in terms of excellent, I had an opportunity to read the information which on you from the Stoughton patch and saw a number of things that I found of interest. And it seems to me that you're probably one of the youngest persons who have run for the select board. You may hold that distinction. But why don't you tell our viewing audience a little bit about you so they can know something about who Jared Rose is?
Yeah, my background is I am a former state Senate aide, a green certified realtor. I am the co-chair of our Stoughton Cultural Council, member of our town meeting and the historical commission, member of the Democratic Town Committee. I live here in town with my wife, Lynn, and my 7-month-old baby boy named Beckett, who you might occasionally hear a little noise from. We're all working from home now and doing that pandemic life. That's my background. I'm really running to, because I think that these experiences have kind of given me really good insight into like kind of some of the main issues that Stoughton are going to face over the next couple of years. My priorities include really working to make our town as green as possible, and really working on renewable, affordable energy for everybody, trying to create affordable housing for every income level, and trying to rebuild the way we do some constituent services stuff at town hall.
Well, as I said, in doing some of my research on you, I noticed that what it appears to be that unless back in the early stages of the founding of Stoughton, persons may have been younger than you, Jared, but as I've read, you're 30 years old, and that's what I know in most recent time, that certainly would probably distinguish you as that. Are there, you mentioned some interesting issues with regards to the environment, how affordable housing, in terms of the greening. How do you feel that this select board or being on the select board will enable you to influence or to bring to bear any of those issues that you are so passionate about?
Yeah, well, so we have some really cool opportunities here in town, right? When it comes to green energy and carbon neutrality and stuff like that, the state's actually about to mandate that every town goes carbon neutral by 2035. That might seem like a long time in the future. It's just as far away as 2007 was. So for some of us, that seems like, not that far away. So we have to have people in office who both want to do this and kind of understand the process. That particularly looks like, we are rebuilding a bunch of buildings here in town or in the process of starting that process. So how are those powered coming up? How are we updating and modernizing our buildings that already exist here? Again, the state's not going to give us an option. So we have to have real plans for how we're going to do this. In terms of housing stuff, there's a lot of really cool opportunities. And this is, obviously this is not a Stoughton only issue, right? We have the entire region has a dramatic, lack of supply right now. And, I'm a realtor, so I can tell you, like, most houses, you put them on the market and they're gone the same day. So because there's so much demand and not enough supply. So the board has a unique opportunity to really affect some of the zoning that goes on in town. Now, it's not alone in that. There are other powers in between the planning board and the redevelopment authority. So it's certainly not a one and done with the board in terms of housing, but we can really make some real progress on some of these issues.
Well, I can see you have at least one supporter. I can hear him or her at this point in time. That's in support of you. Oh, no, that's not a problem. It's always good to go into the ballot box with at least one supporter besides yourself. So you definitely have that. So don't even worry about that. You've served on a number of different boards or commissions here in town. And that certainly gave you an opportunity to get a very, in-depth look at how government operates here. How have you found your experience in having done that? Because again, I don't want to keep hopping on the age factor, but it is a factor because yes, we need to begin to grow persons such as yourself for future leadership within this town as well, and to encourage more people to do that. So I only hop on it not from the standpoint of anything which is maybe derogatory. I applaud it that you would want to, one, having a young family, but as well trying to do some things as well in town. So I applaud you for doing that. So how has your experience been, Jared?
Well, so I've been involved in some form of volunteer government capacity since I was 16. I didn't grow up here in Stoughton. I grew up in Acushnet, which is right next to New Bedford. I went to New Bedford High. And I was the student rep elected by my high school to be the student that represents them to the school committee in New Bedford when I was 16 and 17. That was kind of my opening salvo, if you will, to local government. And New Bedford has a much bigger school district, right? That one is 26 schools. And I was the one student who had to represent all of them for that year. So, it was really interesting. It was a crash course from there, I went to college at UMass Amherst, where I was involved in a number of local campaigns and our student government and all of that. And I worked after that, I worked at the state Senate as an aide for a number of years. So that being said, I am young. I might be the youngest select board member ever, but I've been involved in government in one way, shape, or form for quite some time. So here in town, I think it really depends, it is a small group of people that are involved heavily in town government, right? Between the town meeting, which is 160, the select board, which is 5, planning board, redevelopment authority, people on the cultural council with me. It's a small group of people, it's less than 300.
No, 400. I call it there's 50 people that run the town.
Yeah, exactly. And then, right. And then in reality, of those groups of people, there's less people who actually do the work, who show up and yada, yada. So, I've really gotten to know quite a few of them over the years, and make good relationships with them. And, a lot of it's about coalition building, about kind of building community, right? You're not going to agree with everyone about everything, but it's in everyone's best interest to try to find common ground and find ways to work together, right? So that's kind of the way I kind of come at this and kind of approach.
Well, it seems to me that, and again, I applaud your activism and willingness to become involved, and particularly starting at a young age. I mean, to have been the student representative for the school's students and for the schools in New Bedford, that's an awesome achievement. at 16 or 17 years old. So, I have to call you a prodigal child for the work that you have done. But as well, it sounds like to me, based upon where you've been, that you are a one who wants to get everybody to yes, and to do it in a manner in which can be, direct, but as well to get cooperation in order to get things done. Would that be a true assessment of your character or your style or your approach to governing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I learned that from one of my old boss, who was the state senator who I worked for, right, with the state house. When I worked for her, we were the primary sponsor and like the chief pusher of the most recent version of the equal pay law that we passed in 2017. And that process, I mean, took years of work, right, to make happen. And everyone thinks, Massachusetts is so democratic and yada, yada, yada. But it still takes a lot to pass legislation through any means of town meeting, board of selectmen, legislature, what have you. And so yeah, my goal, right, is to listen to people, find out where they're coming from and how we're going to work together towards a common goal, right? Now, there are going to be people that's just not going to be a realistic option for, right? But those are going to be in the the far minority. So I think that there's a lot of more that connects us as people that we want to do, especially at the local level, right? Like we all want to have successful, transparent government that helps us as well as possible. We all want good schools for our kids, and this isn't a school committee race, of course, but still. We all want, to have our taxes being spent well. So we might disagree about some of the stuff, but a lot of the stuff we can come to an agreement on, I think.
Well, it sounds like you're a consensus builder, and you'll get your opportunity if you come on the select board. That has not always been the manner in which the deliberations of the select board have been undertaken, but hey, there's always time for a change. I want to ask you about some specific issues. Some of them are hot button issues for me. Other ones are hot button issues that I know have been in the town. So let's start with since you're on the environmental side and greening and certainly and also real estate. Let's talk about the Park Street expansion. I couldn't, that's been around. I was around before I was interim town manager. And has continued on, still unresolved since then. And that's been, I think, what have math-wise 9 years ago. And I know that the town engineer, Mark Tisdale, has been able to at least put it seemingly on the front burner, and I believe that the select board is supporting that. If you were a member of the select board, what's your position on that Park Street expansion of the sewer line?
Oh, I'm in support of it. I've talked to a lot of people about it, like you said, and there's a long history of it. And quite frankly, I've lived here for 5 years. So a lot of it does, predate me. So learning coming into this particular project as, quite frankly, a newcomer, I'm looking at it from from a starting point almost of like, do we need this? Clearly, yes, in many cases. And if you look at kind of the way like sewer works and how it's processed and dealt with, it is cleaner, better for the environment than like septic systems are. And if you can do it in correct ways. So I'm in support. I mean, I know that there's a lot of details when I say that happened.
Well, I think you would approach it in a correct way. I mean, obviously, there is some economic aspects to that. There are certain impacts as well to individual homeowners.
Right.
But I think they've tried to ameliorate those in a lot of different ways, from the cost to individual homeowners. And to broaden the payment across the entire town. But the benefit would be that we'd be able to get businesses on the south end of Stoughton, like Brockton, since they now Campanelli Drive and other places are connected to Brockton's sewer system, and therefore they're realizing the benefit as well as the business expansion opportunity. So I've been a supporter of that for sure.
And my understanding is that we are getting $3 million from the federal government because of the COVID package. And I don't think my understanding is that it's not clear yet on exactly what we can spend that on. So I would hope that would help alleviate some of our budget. Maybe we can work a little bit on more of the sewer project. If not, I mean, I understand but I would like to see it move quickly and happen.
Well, I think that, I'm familiar with some of the things on COVID, but I'm not going to try to be the COVID expert as to what they can spend it on. I'll leave that to the collector treasurer in order to provide that type of assurances. But I know some of it will be for some of the salaries and all. And so so that'll be at least a start. Just talking about the COVID, because I want to cover a few issues. I'm keeping track of time so that Roy will allow me to do this as often as I might like. But the COVID certainly was disruptive across this world, not only, and as well within the Commonwealth and certainly in the town of Stoughton. And I had on Janice Bruce, visiting nurses the other day, and it seems to me that they had a good plan in place. There were some spotty issues with regards to receiving adequate amounts of the vaccine. Just from your own observation by a resident of Stoughton, how do you think we fared as far as addressing the COVID pandemic here in Stoughton?
Here in Stoughton, I mean, I think that we did the best with a bad situation, right? Obviously, there's limits on what the town government can do given the state laws, and we have to follow the governor's orders, of course. So, I was really happy that the current board, installed their COVID-19 advisory committee that they had going on, and they had, teachers and nurses and scientists on it and everything, that they actually then listened to those people, right? And on how to keep things closed or not, how to, effectively help the Board of Health and the visiting nurses and everything. I think going forward, one of the things that we can look at as a board is if we can be helpful in opening up areas to actually receive vaccines between a wide range of stuff. Even dental offices are under discussion right now for how they can open and help with vaccine distribution. So the board itself, statutorily, and doesn't have a ton of a role in it, except for oversight. But it seems like the town manager and the officials have been successful in kind of being leaders in this role.
Well, I will say that, yes, in my conversation with Janice, and also I was fortunate enough, I've gotten my 2 doses, not here in Stoughton, but I have my 2 doses. In fact, probably by the time this program airs, I will have had 2 events occur. One, my 2 weeks after my second dose time will have passed, so that can be considered fully vaccinated. And of course, I keep telling everybody my birthdays, and I'll take as much birthday greetings as the viewing audience wants to give me. But let me come back. Now, this issue is one that has been near and dear to my heart ever since I was interim town manager, and that is Fire Station 1. It was in a deplorable condition 9 years ago, and still in a deplorable condition. I know I saw it as an article that's talking about the firehouse once again, or public safety building. There was some discussion about using some land that was for school purpose
Schools,
or
yeah.
not. That I heard it may have been withdrawn. What is your view about? I mean, you got to do something, and hopefully, if you get there, you got to do something about Station 1. I think to have our men and women there have to be in those deplorable conditions while they're addressing our public safety is wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, you know, I think one of the things that we saw, this is, again, this is not just a Stoughton problem, but we have a tendency around here to, governed by commission in many cases, like go and study the problem, and then we have a report and then go and study the problem again because we're not actually ready to make the decision.
You sound like ND Police.
Yeah.
That's ND Police's line.
So for me, one of my big things in general, right, is kind of just trying to have like a really like future focused push, right? Like that's the goal. Like, how are we going to get there? And the example I always use is like, the state built the MBTA and then spent 100 years neglecting it, and now this is what you have, right? So it does seem like past boards have really like kicked the can down the road on actually making this decision, right? Now, it looks like the Armory probably is the best option based on everything that I've seen and kind of looked at and some of the data that I've seen. I'm not on the board now, so I'm not privy to everything that, they have access to. But we obviously have to make a decision, right? Like, we can't kick the can down the road forever. So I'm definitely in favor of getting them a new building, most likely looking at some version of something at the Armory based on everything I've seen. But if not, then finding something quickly that we can do, an actual location that we can build. I know that's easier said than done, obviously, but the current situation is not sustainable.
Well, I will agree. There's some question about the Armory and response time on the southern part of the town, but I'll leave that again to those who have the numbers and the statistics to determine. But I am definitely on the side of something needs to be done
Right.
with regards to a new fire station to replace Station 1. Another issue that's been near and dear to me has been what I perceive and I believe is actual is the lack of diversity on the staff, particularly as a staff within town hall. I can't speak for public safety. Excuse me. I can't speak for the public works. I know there are some folks in public safety, but as far as the diversity, I don't believe the town has an affirmative action plan. I don't think they have a diversity plan. I don't think they have anything along those lines.
Yep.
What is your position on what should the town do with regards to that issue, which I find somewhat deplorable?
Yeah, and if you walk around, town hall, I mean, don't do it right now, but before COVID, if you walk around town hall, obviously you will see a high lack of diversity, right? So one thing I would really like to do is look at how the town manager is actually managing this, right? I don't know the answer to that question, I should say up front. But you're right. My understanding is that we don't have like an affirmative action or a diversity policy. I would like to see that changed. I think that is something that we can easily have be like one of the things that we're looking at the town manager for like performance review wise, and all of the different department heads. We have, and it's time. Let's put it that way. It's time to jump some of our hiring policies into the 21st century, right? And make sure that these are priorities as well, and that we're not inadvertently or purposely keeping people behind.
Well, I certainly appreciate your honesty. For the last few moments that we have, speak to the viewing audience, the voting public that are going to determine the next persons on the select board, and tell them why you believe that you're the right candidate for the job.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for watching today. I really appreciate your time. And thank you, Joe and Roy, for doing this with me. For me, I'm really focused on trying to be a proactive, like future focused select board member. I really want to, not kick the can down the road and really try to address some of these issues head on. I know that's easier said than done, but you actually have to say it before you can do it. And I think that I'm the best person for this role because of that exact mentality. I'm not focused on the past and some of the squabbles that have happened over the years or who did what when. I want to use this job so that we can make our town a better place. My 7-month-old is going to grow up here. I want the town to be the best possible place for him and for all of your kids and for you. So that's what I would say, Joe.
All right. Well, Jared, thank you so much. I think you've been forthright in terms of what your views are, what your thinking is, and where you'd like to see things go for this for the town of Stoughton. I want to wish you well on your campaign. I want to thank my producer, Roy Cohen. He is just fabulous. I want to thank Mike Hammond and all the others at SMAC who help in making Community Forum possible. So I'll bid you well and have a great day with that 7-month-old.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Joe.